I guess my goal was to become a chef one day or to own a restaurant one day. And I guess if you just put your head down, stop complaining about your job, I guess you have to love what you do. That's what everybody says, but it's true. If you like what you do and you don't mind working long hours and being sweaty, smell like food every single night, it's easy. I just kept on doing it until, it went by really fast.
Welcome to Theoretically Speaking, hosted by Victoria Herrera and Brent Javier. From the Philippines to the world, this is an interview series with creative entrepreneurs, tastemakers, and change agents. We dissect the journey they took from dream to reality, exchanging stories from the past, motivations in the present, to ideas for the future.
Hey guys, welcome back to Theoretically Speaking with me, Victoria Herrera, and Brent Javier. Our special guest for today adds up to our stellar cast for season 1. We love learning from him and we love seeing him around. And I've had the pleasure of knowing him back in Hong Kong when he first opened up his restaurant and seeing how he brought that brand all the way here to Manila.
And to formally introduce our guest, he is the owner and executive chef of Chino, Manila, the hippest fusion restaurant of BGC. He discovered his passion for cooking at 20 years old and has since accelerated into the culinary industry. His distinct mix of Japanese-Mexican cuisine is the culmination of his experience from his childhood in LA to his decade-long tenure in the prestigious Nobu 57 franchise. Today, his Chino restaurants are thriving both in Hong Kong and Manila, hailed for its unique ambiance and mouth-watering servings. Friends, without further ado, Chef Erik Idos.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hey, what's up, Erik?
What's up?
Nice to meet you for the first time, actually. So I haven't met Erik, but pleasure to have you here on Theoretically Speaking, and looking forward to getting to know about your journey.
So let's start from the very beginning. What got you interested in the food industry, and what made you decide to pursue a career as a chef?
Interesting. All right. So my story is I'm from LA, born and raised. I went to school in LA. I finished high school in the Valley, and then I never went to college. I never applied for any universities and any of that. So I did 2 years in community college in the Valley, and then in those 2 years, I became a really good snowboarder. I really wanted to become a pro snowboarder from the age of 17 till 20. I would pretend to go to community college, but I would really go to Mountain High or Big Bear or Mammoth and go snowboarding for 2 years. And that's what I thought I was going to be. I was like, I'm going to become a snowboarder. And I was like, it's not going to happen. There's no pro Filipino snowboarders out there. And then I decided, all right, I think I was 20, and I was like, I really have to do something. And then I was looking, I was like online all of a sudden, and I think I was like on the Food Network. I was watching Emerald, I think, or Martin Yan, and Yan Can Cook. And then I was like, I'm going to try to apply for culinary school. I searched online, then I was like, San Francisco. I like San Francisco. So I applied for the California Culinary Academy in San Francisco in 2000. I applied, and then I got in. And then I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to go to the culinary school. All of a sudden, I guess that's like where the journey began, because ever since I was 20 till now, I never stopped. So I lived in San Francisco. I graduated in 2000. I worked at a couple of good restaurants, a couple like Michelin star restaurants. And then I started, I went to visit one of our friends in New York. You probably know him. You know Jay Suarez.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I decided to visit him he went to school in Columbia. So I decided to visit him. And then I fell in love with New York. And then decided, all right, leave SF, move to New York with no job. I lied to my parents that I found a job in New York, because Filipino parents, they want you to have a job first before you move somewhere else. So I did the complete opposite. I lied to them saying that I had a job. Luckily, I had an uncle who lived in Queens, so my dad called my uncle and said, "Hey, Erik is gonna move to New York. Do you mind him staying in the extra room?" They're like, "Yeah, sure." Packed my bags, moved to New York City with no job, And then I got there. I was like, okay, well, here I am in New York. What am I supposed to do? So cooking, you go work at stages, like interns for a day for free. So, I tried all these restaurants, all these good restaurants, and then I started to work at Nobu. And that started my long journey began, I guess, was Nobu, because I worked for Nobu for 10 years. So moved to New York in 2004 until 2007 or 2008, I think, and then worked for Nobu there. New York for 4 years. I wasn't ready to leave New York because I love New York so much. I was like, I'm not ready to leave, but they gave me opportunity to become a sous chef in Nobu in San Diego in California, and then I decided, all right, was it stay in New York City because I loved it so much. I like the atmosphere, the crowd, the energy of the city, and move back home. I guess I moved to San Diego because the opportunity was there to become, to move myself up in the cooking path career. And then I became this, I moved to San Diego in 2008, 2007 to 2008. And then I was a sous chef there. And then, that's where I met Tracy, my girlfriend. She was the sous chef there. And that's where I met her. And then, San Diego was cool. It was like moving from New York to San Diego was a complete change from moving to a city and then moving to a beach town. It was like everybody was way too chill. Everyone wearing shorts, sandals, t-shirts, everybody talking like a bra over there. I was like, it was cool. I was ready. I was like, okay, I guess I'm ready for this. And then the opportunity came that, I was like, one of my dreams was to live in a different country because I traveled before all this. I traveled to Asia, and then I really wanted to work in a different country. So, I had an opportunity. Nobu called me when I was working in San Diego. He's, I'll have a job opportunity for you in Hong Kong if you want to become the chef over there. And then I was like, yes, let's do it. So basically, it happened really fast. It was like March, I could remember, March 2010. I got the call. I flew to Hong Kong in 2 weeks to do a tasting for the hotel, or for Nobu over there, because it's inside a hotel. I did a tasting, and then they offered me a job. And they're like, okay, you're moving here in May. So basically, I had like a month to pack. Tracy and I asked Tracy she wanted to move to Hong Kong. She said yes. So basically, it was basically packing up our bags a couple weeks and then moving to Hong Kong in May 2010. And then I've been living in Asia for the past 10 years of my life. And then I worked for Nobu in Hong Kong for 4 years. And then in 2014, that's when I was like, I was working for Nobu for 10 years already. And I was like, okay, should I decide, to open my own restaurant or decide to change, take the leap and freaking try to open my own restaurant? And then I was living in Hong Kong for 4 years. I knew the right people, I guess. I started to have a good following and had good friends who opened restaurants, like Matt from Yardbird. I had good friends already there, had a good connection. And they're like, just do it. Just, you know the right people, people who have money. And then I quit Nobu, and that's when I opened Chino. I opened Chino December 24th, Christmas Eve 2014. And then now, as of now, Chino's still open. It's going on 6 years in Hong Kong. And then the one in Manila I opened it in 2018. So 20 years of working and cooking and having no days off.
If I could ask, what clicked with you with culinary as opposed to, ending up pursue your snowboarding dreams or other dreams?
I don't know. It's, snowboarding dreams was after like 2 years, I was like, all right, this is not for me. I was too much of a pussy to take big jumps and freaking try to do 720s and try to ride half pipes. I know it was just, just cool to hang out with friends. When I
What
started,
passion was there for snowboarding?
was a passion. I think it was just like all our friends was like hanging out with friends up in the mountain, and then you ride with them for like 6 hours a day, and you're like, all right. Something about snowboarding. I still love doing it. I still love going right now to like Prosecco, at least once a year to get my snowboarding in, to get it out of me. But cooking, how I stuck with it was very hands on. It wasn't. I'm not book smart. Wasn't the smartest person in high school. I was like barely passed because I never liked reading books or studying. Culinary was more like hands on. You get to touch and feel and taste, and it was something about that I guess I liked, because it was more touching and feeling the food and using your hands instead of trying to remember something from a book and trying to study from that. It was more hands-on. That's what I liked about it.
I don't know what to ask yet. I'm just like, that's such, because I've known Erik for 6 years, but I've never asked that question. So for me, I'm like, I should have asked this 6 years ago.
Yeah, so I started cooking when cooking wasn't cool. That's what I tell everybody. I did. Now everybody wants to become a chef because everybody thinks they can become a chef all of a sudden.
Master Chef got glamorized.
Exactly. Top Chef, all these shows glamorize it all. Back then, it was barely any Asians cooking. It was mostly Mexicans cooking inside kitchens. San Francisco, I was basically the only Asian guy. That's why I called my restaurant Chino, because every Mexican and every restaurant I worked at was like, oh, who's the Chino inside the restaurant? That was me. Only crazy Filipino guy decided to cook with all the Mexicans in San Francisco.
And how was it like, for example, when you're studying the culinary arts, how did you find the type of cuisine that you love to cook, not have to cook?
You have to go work at a lot of restaurants and decide what you like to do. Right? I worked at a lot of kitchens. I worked at hotels that do very big scale, like banquets and like big scale dinners, like 300 people parties. It was fun to learn that, but it wasn't like the thing that I love to do. It was good to learn, right? And you're working at all these fine dining restaurants. That's where you learn your technique, and you learn at every restaurant. Every restaurant I worked at, I learned something, what I liked or what I didn't like about it. You just have to work at different restaurants and see which one you actually really like. I guess that's why I chose Nobu, because I always worked at like French restaurants, and Nobu was my first like Japanese, Peruvian. I don't like the word they use, fusion restaurant, but that type of cuisine. I guess I liked it, so I stuck on to it because it was just different. And it wasn't really like, it was more of like a hip type of scene, like Nobu was like all celebrities used to come at Nobu in New York. So I guess that type of culture of a type of restaurant is what I liked.
And how did you get into Mexican cuisine?
Being from LA.
Got it.
Got it. Enough said.
I grew up in the Valley. So mostly all my friends in high school were Mexican. So from San Fernando Valley. So I went to Alamany. So half my friends were Mexican. So like after school, we would go to taquerias, taco shops, get tacos. So that's what everybody says. How you get into Mexican? I was like, I was born in the Valley in LA, and I hung out with mostly Mexicans in high school. So I guess that's how I love Mexican food, was basically all throughout high school. That's what I ate.
What other kinds of cuisine do you appreciate? So you've done French a lot. Obviously, you've done Japanese. You said Peruvian and Mexican. Is there any other food that you prefer personally?
Like what I like to cook, or like what I like to
Sure, both. How about both?
I like to cook everything. I like to try other things. There's an art in everything. I guess Japanese is my favorite type of cuisine because there's a lot of, you learn a lot. There's not just one thing about it. It's just not sushi in Japanese, Japanese. there's yakitori, there's izakaya restaurants, beef, wagyu restaurants. So I guess Japanese food is just a wide variety of food that it could be eaten.
And with working in so many restaurants, what do you feel is like the hardest thing about it?
Just work, long hours. People think cooking is easy. It's basically on your feet for 16 hours a day. You're in the restaurant in the morning, and you're the last ones to leave from the restaurant, basically, the cooks. I guess that's what I liked about it, was like the long hours. It kept me busy, and I didn't mind it. I didn't mind, working from 10 a.m. till 1 a.m. I guess I loved it. I love that pressure. I love the rush of cooking, on the line. That's why I guess I stuck with it. I was always busy. Had no time to think about what am I going to do, or is this the right career path that I'm taking. I just put my head down. I shut up. I just worked.
That's awesome. Your answers have been really interesting for me because a lot of it was like you went with the flow. You decided to just sign up for culinary school, then you went to New York, then you went to San Diego, then you went to Hong Kong. But the way you talk about it is so like it just flowed for you. And then even how you talk about your approach to work is that it's also just like a flow for you. Because a lot of people, if they were to say they'd have to work from 10 a.m. to 1 a.m. standing, they'd be like, oh, hell no, right?
Oh, yeah.
But the way you handle everything, it seems like there's an ease to it. Were you always like that? Or
I don't know. I guess cooking made me like that. Was the discipline. I guess my goal was to become a chef one day. And I guess if you just put your head down, stop complaining about your job, I guess you have to love what you do. That's what everybody says, but it's true. If you like what you do and you don't mind working long hours and being sweaty, smell like food every single night, and like grease and smell like fish, it's easy. I just kept on doing it until it went by really fast.
yeah. But the way you tell the story, I could also see like, I guess the way you're telling it, I'm like, must have been fun too.
Yeah, of course. Being a chef is not a glamorous career, or becoming a cook is not a glamorous career. We would work till 1 a.m. or midnight and drink until like 5 a.m. and do it the next day. It was just like a complete cycle of like, I guess that's what that was fun about it, was like you had your close-knit crew in the kitchen that you didn't mind being with them all day and drink with them all night. It was like a family bond that was like I liked about the kitchen.
And how do you foster and make sure that family bond in the kitchen is strong with your team?
You just have to hang out with them, get along with them, talk to them,
Yeah.
drink with them. You have to find what they like to do and what they don't like to do. But most of them like to drink. Most cooks like to drink.
It just goes back to that.
That's what it is. It's I usually take my cooks out. Right now and in Hong Kong, I usually take my cooks out to eat at night, late night food, hang out with them, have a bond with them. You just learn from all your older chefs that I worked with was you hang out with them after work. You get late night food, drink beers with them, and you just hang out with them all night. And you didn't mind, you see them the next, in 4 hours, you're back in the kitchen together and you don't mind it.
With your experience so far, how has your support system been? Like, because you started like at 20 and you took like a unconventional job at the time, like were your parents supportive, or who was holding you up when you were down?
Filipino parents. When I told my parents I was going to culinary school, they're like, what? Where are you going? What are you doing? They're like, culinary school. My mom's like, what's culinary? Like, I want to become a cook, a chef. And they're like, they really had to think about it. Of course.
But at the
number
end,
one answer was
you.
for my mom was become a nurse. That's what everybody mom says. Like, my mom is a nurse. Or my dad was an engineer. My dad's all, why you become an engineer? Follow my footsteps. It was hard because, they're like, you should go back to college and try to get a degree. And I was like, Mom, Dad, I hate school. So they're like, you're gonna waste your money on me if I get accepted to university, you probably waste my money because I probably wouldn't even know what to take if I went back to school. And then my brother was the biggest support because my brother was like, why don't you just let him do it? See what happens. Even though my brother's he went to UCLA, he went to medical school, he's a doctor, but he was basically the biggest supporter of me because he was the one who forced my parents to just let him do it, see if he actually likes it. Don't stop him. So he was the one who forced my parents to make me to move to San Francisco for school. And once I guess I became a chef, and that's when my parents were like, "Oh, son, Erik, so good. My son's a chef." Blah blah blah. But I guess my parents got used to it. I guess they figured out that I loved what I did, and then they're like, "Are you sure you want to work these long hours? You work all day." I was like, "Yeah, I like it." Like, okay, are you sure? You can always go back to school, Erik. I was like, "No, I'm not gonna go back to school, Mom or Dad." Like, okay. So and they supported me throughout the whole journey. Of me from San Francisco to New York to San Diego to Hong Kong to Manila. They supported me throughout the whole journey of my career. And then of course, Filipinos are proud that oh, my son has now 2 restaurants, blah blah blah. But they were my brother, my parents were basically my biggest support growing through the culinary journey of mine.
And in your 20-year history, what has been, if you can tell us some crazy stories of who walked into one of your restaurants, what did they order, who did they bring with them, anything you're allowed to tell.
Well, working for Nobu was like Nobu 57 is where I saw the most celebrities. I saw Jay-Z, I saw Beyonce, I saw Gwen Stefani. I saw everybody. I saw everybody famous at Nobu 57. I went to Martha Stewart's house in Connecticut to do a party.
What?
Yeah, I hung out. We would do private dinners for Martha Stewart at her studio in New York, and then she catered Nobu to do her house event in Connecticut. So we did that. A lot of baseball players there. Jeter I saw him all the time. Yeah, you name it. New York 57 when in 2014 till I worked there was like the hot spot. Everybody went there. I saw P. Diddy. I would see everybody from there inside that restaurant.
Anyone you got starstruck with?
Oh, no, not really. Because I used to work, like there used to be this omakase window and you would see through it. There used to be a table, like a hibachi table where you cook your own stuff. And I used to work that station. And then all these famous people used to sit at that table because it was kind of private. So, I would see all these, like, I guess Jay-Z, because he would just like peep through the window and say hi to us through the window. And like, who else did we see? J-Lo, Beyonce, I guess. Wasn't too famous yet.
Pretty much everyone has to.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much everyone. Everybody went to Nobu 57 when it just opened. It was the hot spot in New York.
And how was it like actually being in the space of Nobu? Like when you actually met him and learned or worked there, how was that experience?
It was cool because it was like Nobu now, he has, I don't know the complete number of restaurants, but as of right now, I think he has like 55 restaurants around the world. When I worked at Nobu back then, he only had it was probably like 15 probably, or 15 Nobus only. So it was nice to see him grow throughout the journey and how he opened restaurants so freaking fast. Like there's always opportunity back then to go to a different restaurant. But he was very cool, I was just a cook, so he was very nice. He would just say hi to us. And then, when I worked at Nobu in New York, he would just say hi and greet us and take pictures with us and tell us. But he was very hands-on. That's why I liked him also. He would taste his own food. He would drink sake with us and all that stuff. When I really got to know him was when I became the chef in Hong Kong. because he really takes care of his chefs of his restaurants. So he would like hang out, drunken nights with Nobu, drinking tequila in Hong Kong, and then he would take us. He would hang out with us he would stay in Hong Kong for at least 3 days, and one of those days he would take us to nice dinners outside Hong Kong, like all restaurants that he would want to try. He would take his chefs with him. So it was actually like, to me, he was like a mentor. He's like a mentor to me because he's the longest chef I ever worked for. He taught me is how I try to pass on to my other chefs now, or how I try to run my restaurant right now. Was like he always took care of his chefs no matter what. He always had his back, always had their back. So it was really cool to see that when I became the chef at Hong Kong. Was like it was great because he would take us to expensive ass dinner. That I was like, oh man, and he would just be like, yeah, just order whatever, and we would have drink wine, and they always end up drinking. His favorite tequila is 1942, so we always end up drinking 1942 in the end of the night, and having very drunk nights with Nobu in the end.
Awesome. And when it came to traveling from city to city, how was your first adjustment into the Asian market? Like when you first got to Hong Kong?
It was weird because moving to Hong Kong was like happened really fast. Month and a half span. I was like packed my bags, and here I was, 14 hours away from home, an Asian country that I had no idea about.
Had you been there before?
I went there before. I did like a trip with all the friends to Asia. So we visited like China, Japan, Hong Kong. And I was like, oh, Hong Kong, I guess, What caught me into Hong Kong was the view of Hong Kong from the harbor. And I was like, man, I would love to work here one day. And then when I finally got the job, I was like, holy shit, can't believe I'm moving to Hong Kong. And then just adjusting to the whole thing was, at least I had I had a couple of friends living there already. So it's pretty easy, to adjust, I guess. But it's also easy to adjust there because there's a lot of expats who live there. So I met the right friends. It's all about linking with the right people.
Yeah.
And then you just link up with the right people, right friends, and that's your crew for the thing. And that's how I met Vicky, because just through friends.
So yeah, I remember meeting you in Rax, which is a bar in Hong Kong. And our mutual friend introduced us, Ken. And I met Ken when he still works in Yardbird, but when I visited Yardbird, I met Ken, and then I ran into you guys. And then the first thing Ken said was like, you guys should meet, you're both Filipino. Do you remember that? And we're like, okay. But you're really friendly. And Hong Kong was really friendly like that. And then you guys are really nice. And that's it. And I didn't really know your background. I just knew you guys opened a restaurant. And I knew that my brother, John, was obsessed with Mexican food. So him and Rosario visited like the month after in January. And John's like, where should we go? And I said, oh, you like Mexican? You should check this out. And then I took him over to your restaurant with Rosario and Patty, my sister and John's wife. And that's how we all kind of started connecting. Fun memories. So about your restaurant, Chino, how was it when in 2014, when you opened those doors, when you were building the brand, thinking of the identity? Like, how was that whole process? Because that's your restaurant.
It was a dream, basically, right? So everything that I wanted to do and everything what I thought my restaurant would be, I put it into it. It was hard to open your own restaurant in Hong Kong, but also easy if you knew the right people. And luckily, I knew the right people who helped me build that restaurant. Like I had Matt from Yardbird, I had Lindsay from Yardbird. So I had a good structure behind me to help me out to do these things. Everything about Chino was everything that I wanted in a restaurant. I don't want a very fine dining. I want a very casual type of restaurant that people come hang out, chill, can get drunk. I don't want it to be. You've been there, and you've been the one here in Manila. It's very minimalistic.
Yeah.
It's just I let the food speak for itself. Everything that I put into it is everything how I wanted my restaurant to be. Very industrial, plays hip hop music I like to listen to. I do the food that I want to cook, because it's the food that I like to eat: tacos, Mexican, Japanese.
A lot of people, this is one of the key things about your restaurant. Everyone always asks, who puts those playlists together? Every single person I take to Chino is like, this is a good playlist. Like, who put this together? Where can I find it? So tell us that, Eric. Tell us the story behind that.
Playlist is, I don't know, it's music that I like to listen to. I guess it's, it's hip hop. It's old school hip hop. And sometimes I put some, some new stuff in there just to change it up a little bit. But everything, from a tribe called Quest, it's the music I grew up listening to. I guess I have good friends in the, who are DJs like Vice, like Eric.
Yeah.
And growing up with them, listening to what they like to play at clubs, easy to put a playlist if you have a good genre of taste of music.
Yeah. And if you're surrounded by people who love music, it just all goes into that.
Exactly. It was good to have like friends who are DJs.
And like one of the things I learned, and I felt it more when I was living in Hong Kong, like a restaurant was a whole vibe, right? It was everything from the way they greet you at the door to, of course, the food, the music, the interiors. And your restaurant always had that vibe where you could just connect, feel comfortable, talk to people, and that sort of thing. And that was like really a part of what I remember it as in Hong Kong. But how was that transition also bringing that vibe to Manila? Like, can you tell us that story? It also being different cultures.
Living in Hong Kong, I got to visit Manila a lot because I'm Filipino. I have a little bit of family still here, so Tracy and I used to visit every year. From 2010, or even coming back a long time ago when port wasn't really anything. It only had embassy, I guess, back in the day, right? So seeing it grow, build what BGC is right now was like, and you see all these restaurants starting to be built, back then I was like, oh, maybe one day I'll put a restaurant up here. And then 2017, when Hong Kong, yeah, I guess there's a lot of people. A lot of people were very interested in opening Chino all over the world. When I first opened in 2014, so many people wanted me to open it everywhere because from Singapore to China to everywhere. And I guess I wasn't ready to expand yet. I was very concentrated in the one in Hong Kong. I wasn't ready to expand the restaurant yet. And then 2 years later, I was like, okay, after this restaurant settled down and I found good chefs to run my restaurant in Hong Kong, I gave opening Chino in a different country. So I don't know. I don't know why I chose the Philippines. Was I guess I'm from here. I thought that the Philippines was ready for this. There's a lot of I thought I was ready for this type of cuisine, for this type of vibe of type of restaurants. When I opened this in 2018, it was a hit. It didn't it didn't take off how I wanted it to be. I guess culture wise, I didn't study it very well. I don't know. I thought I would be ready for it, but it wasn't. But there is that small middle that it's maybe not percentage wise, small middle that my crowd is for here in Manila. There's not a lot of that.
Last time we spoke, and that was before quarantine, you had some plans with Chino, right? Is that still going to happen, or is it going to still be?
Before quarantine, we were going to change the brand of it into more what the Filipinos like, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
More of a straight up Mexican restaurant. We closed and then we reopened because I guess of right now it's not worth spending the money to rebrand and to remodel.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
We decided just to reopen it, I guess, just for takeout. And then when they allowed dine-in, I guess we're like, okay, let's try it again. Until this virus, until Corona goes away.
And how is it right now? Like, how are you guys surviving with COVID happening? How do you see the restaurant industries?
The reason why I reopened it was I wanted to give my employees or my staff jobs to make money, at least to get some type of paycheck. I can't I can't hire everybody back. So at least I could pay some people at least, instead of, that's the reason why we reopened it, was to give my cooks and some of my front of the house staff a job to, to take home some money to their families and to them, instead of just them, staying at home and doing nothing. That's the main reason I reopened it, was like I was bored also. I was
Yeah.
like, after like 2 months, 3 months stuck in a house, I was like, I need to do something. I can't run. I can't exercise all day long and watch Netflix all day. Being on your feet all day and being quarantined and sitting down for all day was the biggest change.
Yeah.
Decided just to reopen it. Takeout has been really well. Dine-in, we've been open for dine-in. People are still very scared to go out. Everybody has to move on with their lives. If you guys are scared, then stay home. If you guys aren't scared, wear a mask. Just be safe out there. Do everything that you need to do to be safe. Sanitize, wear a mask. That's it. It's hard. There's a lot of restaurants closing down because it's hard to get staff to work. There's no transportation. I pick up my cooks every morning just to bring them to work. People who live close to me, I pick them up in the mornings. I take them to work and I drop them off at night.
Did you pick up any new skills during this time, or like you said, like exercise? Is there anything else you were doing?
I guess I
New
picked up
dishes, maybe.
I picked up running. I guess with no gyms and nothing open, the only thing to do was do outdoor exercise.
What do you feel is the biggest lesson quarantine has taught you?
Enjoy every second you get to hang out with your friends, with your family, with anybody. All those times I said no to going out for dinners to hang out with friends, now I'm probably going to change my mind, because you never know what's going to happen, right? Like, I'm too busy to have dinner with you. But now, I guess it's like traveling, getting to see other places, try to have a life balance of work, hanging out with friends, hang out with your loved ones, hang out with family. I guess that's the biggest one, right? Because you never know. You never know what's going to happen.
Random question. So
Yeah.
obviously you're Filipino. What Filipino dishes do you like?
What Filipino dishes I like?
Or like to make?
I hate to say this, I'm just so fucking typical Filipino. Like,
Oh, good.
adobo,
Yeah.
adobo would be like the
Uh-huh.
number one thing I cook at home. Well, that's what what I cook at home is probably like sinigang, adobo. What I like to eat, because I don't want to, if I go out to eat, probably like kare, dinuguan.
Damn.
So that's the real stuff.
Yeah, that's really Filipino.
Yeah. I guess, but yeah, what I like to cook at home is like, basics. Stuff that I grew up eating. Adobo,
Comfort
sinigang,
food.
yeah, lumpia. I could find it out there to buy. That's why I go buy. I wish I cooked more Filipino food, but I don't.
Yeah. All right. So just to wrap up our interview, our very last question, what advice would you give to aspiring chefs and restaurateurs in this moment, or those who are beginning their career?
Don't be in a rush. Don't think you're going to become a chef the next day. Enjoy the path. Enjoy the ride that it takes you. Don't think you're going to go to culinary school and you're going to become a chef the next day. Enjoy working at different restaurants. Becoming a chef, you could go all over the world and cook anywhere. That's the greatest thing about becoming a chef is, you can open a restaurant anywhere. You become a cook anywhere. I think kids these days are more worried about, they want to become master chef. They want to become a chef all of a sudden. Take your time and enjoy the ride. Enjoy every step. That's why I tell everybody, don't be in a rush to become executive chef. Become a cook, become a line cook. Enjoy it. Enjoy working long hours. Enjoy everything about it. If you really want to become a chef one day, because that's what it is working those long hours and grinding. I've learned was like, enjoy the ride. That's it.
So thank you so much for sharing your lessons and your stories. And we can't wait to I'll head over to your restaurant, and yeah, you know what I'm going to order, Eric.
I know you know it.
You know, I ordered the same thing for 6 years. So
Here.
yeah, the chicken tostada.
Yeah, chicken and egg. Still here.
Chicken and egg, yeah, same thing. And I can't wait for our team to go there and to experience the Chino vibe. And I just want to say that when you talked about you reopening your restaurant again for your team, that was really inspiring. And I hope that whoever's listening to this, if you're a business owner and you're doing these types of things, it's a great lesson to listen to also. So thank you again, Eric, for being on our show.
Thanks, B. Very nice meeting you, everybody.
Yeah.
So I want to say it was nice to meet you again. Hope we get to connect when I get back to Manila.
Yeah, for sure.
Wish you all the luck with everything that's happening, and thank you again for the time and sharing all your stories and insights on the business and enjoying the grind, enjoying the process, whatever you want to call it, and just keeping it very real. You know, you didn't fluff it up or make it look too glamorous. You just told it as it was, and I appreciate the honesty, and thank you for everything.
Thanks, man. Thanks, guys.
And that was it. Thank you so much. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to share it with a friend. And while you're at it, follow us on Instagram at NextTheory, at Victoria_Herrera, and at Brent Javier.